Why do you think RAG is outperforming fine-tuning in the real world?
If you take a big model that's trained on everything, has massive context, whatever question you have, just load it in there and ask the question. In the time it takes, firstly, just the time it takes to fine tune a model, your data has already changed. It can take thousands to millions of dollars in weeks to go fine tune a model. RAG gives you 0-day knowledge, like knowledge right now. Well, I absolutely believe what we are trying to do is to move from an era of a model that knows things to AI that knows your things. It needs history, it needs context, and it is able to deliver it right now.
Ash, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. Good morning.
Ash, I appreciate the time this morning. You are the CEO of Pinecone, a tremendous Microsoft partner. For our audience, could you give us a quick overview of Pinecone and its role in the Azure ecosystem?
Perfect. So firstly, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And I think we may have seen a flood of almost weekly updates on new AI models, GPT 5.2. You start to see a flurry of exciting news about one more new model that comes in. And we've spent the last 5 years, almost, I would say maybe 4 years now, almost marveling at how fast and how big these AI brains are getting, billions and billions of parameters. At Pinecone, we believe the next leap, it's not about making the brain bigger. It is about making it knowledgeable. And that is super important. If you look at every enterprise, we're all sitting on a gold mine of proprietary data that none of these AI models can actually touch. They definitely cannot see or remember. And our mission, along with the partnership with Azure, is to provide the long-term memory. Long-term memory for this AI that helps these companies literally move past. Most of us have been building chatbots for the first couple of years, but now you're getting to the point where the companies in the world has AI actually understand people's business, understand their customers, understand their history, and provide the information in real time. Right? And we really have been working pretty hard with Azure, and we'll talk about one more partner we just announced with a big Azure partner today, this morning, in fact, a couple of hours ago, where we're turning dark data or proprietary data into a competitive advantage. And the reason I bring this up in your context, especially, is you spend quite a bit of time on this whole anomaly detection. You've had this patent around this whole space. Probably more than anybody else, you understand. A model is only good enough if you can separate the signal from the noise. And what we've been trying to do is to solve that problem at scale because there's just too much information. The question is, what's relevant for me for the task I'm trying to get done right now? And that's pretty much the mission of what Pinecone has been trying to do, is to make these very smart LLMs knowledgeable, context aware, and relevant to me and my business.
So, Ash, I love the focus on long-term. As I think about that for the general audience, the ability to manage and react optimally to long, within the long-term memory context, to me, that's really the foundation of knowledge.
Yep.
That's understanding the history of a topic area.
Yep.
Maybe it's contracts, maybe it's a customer, maybe it's medical, right? And the real value is in understanding the full history. And then to your point, being able to identify the anomalies in that history that are relevant to this moment, to this query, whether it's a medical diagnosis for a customer, whether it's a fraud alert for a particular account, etc. So to me, that is a really powerful way to look at this.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely believe what we are trying to do is to move from an era of a model that knows things to AI that knows your things.
at this moment? The important thing that's
Yeah.
important to you at this moment.
It needs history, it needs context, and it is able to deliver it right now. Because otherwise, a model without context, without your data, is like a stranger who's read all the books, doesn't know anything about you. And if you have to get that stranger to work in production, you need them to be able to bring information about your PDFs, your logs, your context, and get that information to you in milliseconds. So you're able to get some of this stuff. And that's what we've been trying to do. We're not, Pinecone is not a vector data store. We should have really called it more of we organize meaning rather than just organize a bunch of vectors. We provide the plumbing that enables AI models to retrieve the right context at the right time. Like you said, it's not just about providing information, but providing information relevant to you at this moment within milliseconds. And that's what makes AI from a cool chatbot, novelty stuff, to a seasoned employee who has read every document in your company, knows all the context, and is able to get something done that's relevant to your business.
So Ash, let's talk about your comment on meaning and how the Pinecone technology stack would enable that, right? So the point is that the real shift isn't really in smarter models, but in how data and infrastructure come together. So let's talk about how Pinecone enables that for customers.
Yeah. We have customers who actually, many of them use small language models. They don't need the 4 billion, 10 billion, gazillion parameter models. They are trying to find meaning for their business, relevance for their specific function and task. And you take something like a model that provides a general context, like, I'm a library. You have, as a company, all the information. A model could be like a reader who's coming into a library, and Pinecone acts as the librarian, says, hey, you want something? Let me give you the right information. At this point, go to this section and just let me get you that information. And you do that fundamentally from the underlying technology. I think it's pretty well known now, but the idea is to, what Pinecone does is to literally take the information you have, the unstructured, all kinds of information that you have, chunk it down and break it into vectors that start to provide relationship between this information, relationship between the data, so that when you are looking for information, when you're querying for a specific problem, we are not just responding with, here's everything. We're responding with, here's a specific thing. Here's the one meaning of the question you're asking. And that's actually pretty sophisticated. People think it's as simple as a query and I just go match and come back. A Pinecone does a pretty fancy stuff. You take a query, you break it down into multiple queries underneath to try to get the meaning of what this query is. Even the meaning itself, we have to know, because a word float in a query can mean different things if you are a store that sells ice cream floats versus the one that's actually a marina. And being able to parse that query out, being able to say, okay, now let me go look at the context, bring back the most relevant answers, get the context of the question. Because we have long-term memory, we know that James's question is relevant to a certain thing, not compared to what maybe Ash is asking within the same organization. I think that part is pretty sophisticated. In many ways, it's how human brains work. And it's all about, just a lot more knowledge, a lot more awareness, a lot more memory, and being truly aware of the context that this person is asking for. That's so important for us to turn a savant into a knowledgeable, useful worker for us.
So instead of being smart, you're valuable to the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, there are lots of amazingly smart people. It'd be nice if you empower them to be also knowledgeable people.
So Ash, if we look at industry, the go-to approach generally is RAG.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's being used with a whole variety of technology stacks and LLMs, etc., right? Why do you think RAG is outperforming fine-tuning in the real world?
Yeah, and there has been a school of thought that basically assumed if you take a big model that's trained on everything, has massive context, whatever question you have, just load it in there, or whatever data you might have, just load it in there and ask the question. And fine tuning is a lot like writing a textbook, and I'll tell you what that means. Versus RAG is giving a student an open book exam with the latest possible information. And the time it takes, firstly, just the time it takes to fine tune a model. Your data is already changed.
Hmm.
It can take thousands to millions of dollars in weeks to go fine tune a model. RAG gives you 0-day knowledge, like knowledge right now. Fine tuning is like a black box. You ask a question for a model, it gives you an answer. You have no idea where it came from. You have no idea why it produced something. In the enterprise, you want to be able to precisely say, here is the deterministic answer and comes from these sources. And that's the difference between a nice little poem you can write with a chatbot versus something that you can actually produce an invoice or a response to a customer for a specific issue, knowing the history of the customer, knowing the history of the company. And in terms of cost, right, updating a vector in Pinecone is almost no cost. Retraining a model, it's huge. Now there are situations, right? There are situations where you may have a couple of documents. You just want to upload them. You want to do a quick summary. You don't need RAG for that. A model is fine. You just upload it. The model learns, uses that. As long as it's not proprietary data, you don't want it to be revealed to the model and train the whole thing across the board. So I think in an enterprise, in a business context, a model is great to lay the foundation. But if you really want to build something that is custom for you, for your business, you have no choice but to really develop some very sophisticated and scalable RAG capabilities.
So Ash, if I think about the CPG industry, for
Yeah.
example, right, the retail industry,
Yeah.
fine-tuning a model presents a kind of a fixed approach
Yeah.
to the LLM. And the risk that you potentially run, if I understood you correctly, is that the world in June for a retailer is very different from the world in November,
Oh, yeah.
Black Friday, or December. So the potential risk is that you fine tune and fix the model to a business environment in the summer that would not be optimal for a Christmas season, for
Absolutely.
example.
Absolutely. I mean, marketing programs that you may have been doing in summer would be 50% off on your hats, maybe because it's too hot, and maybe you're thinking about sale on winter jackets in a different time frame. And by the time you actually fine tune a model, by the time you actually run some of these, find me something like this that really helps me right now would be actually, you might end up with very weird answers if I'm trying to find a hat in summer versus in the winter time frame, right? Very different kinds of hats. So that there is so much of our day-to-day of how we as human beings learn, we take for granted because that's just how we evolved. When you're trying to do it at scale, when you're trying to do it within an organization, when you're trying to make it available to anybody who's able to contribute pretty effectively to an enterprise, you need AI systems that are knowledgeable. You need AI systems that have an integral part of their workflow with RAG/Pinecone completely built in, provide the context. And while it might seem easy, I've seen so many companies that build all kinds of vector databases, building one that is at scale, building one powered by lots of research that's constantly figuring out how human beings learn. That makes a difference between one that truly serves the enterprise, which is, we'll come to, and that's where the partnership with Azure comes in.
So that's actually a really good segue,
Yeah.
Ash. So Microsoft has made vector search a
Yeah.
first-class citizen in Azure
Absolutely.
and in the Azure ecosystem. How does Pinecone fit into that as a complement to the other Azure tooling?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd be hard pressed to find a single company, definitely in the technology industry, but definitely probably as relevant even in non-technology companies, that is not AI centric, AI based, AI first. So it is inevitable that Microsoft has to provide the capability that allows people to build applications that are having some kind of capability on OpenSearch, having some kind of capabilities to store vectors, and provide a platform that is very broad for all kinds of customer base, along with a whole bunch of other tools. Okay, where do you store the data, the compute? Pinecone, we do one thing. We just do one thing. We are a performance multiplier. We're not a general purpose tool. We are a purpose-built engine just for this massive scale that enables AI to be more knowledgeable. At the same time, we are completely a partner for Azure in the process of being a first-class citizen in the marketplace. Billing, you go right through, you burn your commits, you have a single sign-on, and you have all of the capabilities that Microsoft brings on the enterprise-grade security in the process. And so we have several customers, very large ones, mid-sized ones, small ones, who run Pinecone, who run their AI applications on Azure. They get the reliability of Microsoft Cloud. They get the brains, the models, the infrastructure, the compute, even the underlying storage. And then the Pinecone sub-millisecond latency to allow you to provide the context for whether it's agentic or human applications, right? AI applications. And that's, being able to bring that world's leading vector database that provides this knowledge on top of one of the biggest, most successful enterprise platforms. I think has been a phenomenal partnership for us. And I'll give you a good example. Actually, we'll talk about that one. It's not just us and Microsoft. This morning, we've just announced a partnership with other parts of Microsoft that allows a Microsoft customer or Azure customer to be truly successful and make it much more of a prescriptive, more proven partnership and a platform across any enterprise.
Well, so Ash, let's get into that conversation, right? As you take a look at how AI becomes more embedded in search and analytics and business processes, right? What does the ideal data infrastructure stack look like? And that intersection between Pinecone and Microsoft, what does that look like, especially within the context of the announcements that you've recently made?
Yeah. So this morning, just about a couple of hours ago, we announced a partnership with one of the oldest Microsoft partners, Commvault. And so Azure provides the brain. I think we just talked about compute, models. And then Pinecone provides the memory, the context, the knowledge. And then you're bringing in, the world doesn't stop there. Enterprises need other stuff that really makes their business hum. And so Commvault provides the safety, the data resilience, the ability to extract more knowledge out of the dark data that's sitting inside Commvault for time series kind of capabilities. So Commvault uses Pinecone to protect somebody from resilience, whether it's cyber or human errors. But also, we were partnering with them on providing more capabilities out of the data that's sitting inside Commvault. All of it still under the big purview of Azure itself. And whether it's finance, healthcare, retail, all the places where Azure is amazing at, we will continue to partner with other parts of the ecosystem that an enterprise needs. That's also existing Azure partner to make sure together we make it very, very easy for the enterprise. And in the enterprise, it's about risk management. Yes, of course, cost makes a difference, but the ability to de-risk solutions, deliver high value, but not having to do, don't ask me to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Why don't you guys figure it out? That is huge. And like you were talking earlier, you manage a partner that does this incredibly well by providing just a very curated way of addressing solutions. And that's what we're trying to do. So Azure becomes a bedrock foundation for stuff we do. We are partnering with other people that have done similar partnerships that are synergistic to what the customers need. And we're just trying to make it easier, lower the risk, and make AI that is compliant, that is smart and secure.
Excellent. So Ash, there's there's people that, in the audience that don't live in our world, right? You and I breathe this every day, right? AI, AI, AI. And there are customers and there are partners out there who are starting down this path. So 2 questions. When should they think, right? If they're a customer, a business line manager, when should they think about Pinecone and how it fits into what they do? And then the second question would be for these organizations that are just now starting down this path, any advice, any tips that you would have for them as they consider starting this journey?
Pinecone is AI first now. Every function, everything we do. I have my own, what we call 4 agents effectively. I absolutely believe that AI is a multiplier for each of us. And I'll give you the most relevant example. I just talked about this partnership between Pinecone and Commvault. And what do? We issue a press release. Now, if you start thinking as a comms person, what am I trying to actually get accomplished from a business perspective? I'm trying to accomplish the ability to communicate to James and Ash and everybody else some message about this partnership and why it means to them. And it's very hard. James's view of the world, I don't know. Ash's view of the world, I don't know. So how can I use AI to transform the ability to communicate something? More importantly, hyper-personalize the communication so that James really gets what James is inquiring for, and Ash gets a very different way of thinking about it. So in addition to releasing the press release, at the bottom of the press release, we released what we call a press release assistant. It's a product that's built in where you can say, I read the press release. Tell me a little more about this partnership. Why did you do it with these guys? Pinecone, what is it about Commvault? When is a product going to be released? So you start to open up where James can ask questions that are relevant to you, not just the one that I put out there. I put a framework of like, hey, here's the topic I'm talking about, but you have decided to go dig deep and really inquire things that are relevant to you. I might ask certain different questions. Like, when is this coming out? What is this kind of technology based on? What are the scale limitations? Somebody else might ask some other question. One, you've just enabled a user to come back and solve the problem that you really were trying to get to, which is how can I give them information that they need? Second, even more importantly, if you are the CEO of Commvault or any company, it would be amazing to be able to get in real time feedback from your users, your investors, your partners, your employees in real time. I can see what people are asking. I mean, can you imagine being able to put that out as a press release and hope somebody's actually reading it? And if they did, what was the question they had? Can I respond to some of these concerns? So you just rethought, what does it mean for me to be the comms person managing a press release? Secondly, I'll give you another example. We released a product 3 weeks ago called dedicated read notes. It allows people to go with some massive customers who have tens of billions of vectors, want to do several thousand queries per second in under 25 milliseconds. So we did what most people would have done, which is, we put out a blog and we briefed a few people. But we knew that wasn't sufficient. That wasn't the way to communicate. So built into the blog is a blog assistant that says, okay, here's what it is. But feel free to ask us. It was released on a Monday. By Wednesday, in 48 hours, I had more feedback than what I could get with 6 months of survey, some analyst reports, all kinds of stuff, which, by the way, would have been stale, would have been curated, which would have been whitewashed. Instead, I get this raw feedback from actual users. So this is what I believe. If you can start thinking AI first, the outcomes are the same. We're not forgetting the outcome of what we are trying to do. The way you get to the outcome, the way you're able to engage, AI allows you to do it so much more differently. But this is a challenge, actually. And I speak with several CEOs. I speak with several organizations. I go out on the circuit about what it means to be AI first. Most recently, I was in a very deep technology company that has tons of PhDs in chemistry and physics, and they had the same question. What does AI mean to us? I don't even know. I'm my best. I use Gemini. Is that AI? Like I use ChatGPT. I'm AI savvy. And what we're trying to convey to them was, look, you are experts for 25, 30, 40 years. You are experts at your craft. You know what the outcome is. You just have to mentally now forget how you got. The way you did your outcomes has to be completely different. I give the examples of the 2024 Nobel Prize winner for physics wasn't a physicist, was a computer scientist. Nobel Prize winner for chemistry wasn't a chemist, he was a computer scientist. So when you can get to the point of, I want to pursue something, but now I have tools to make it happen X differently, more effectively. And this is a mind shift. This is why I go engage more with the CEOs, because it begins there. If I can start my journey being AI first, then obviously set an example. Otherwise, if I'm just sitting there saying, please send me all your messages via fax machines, everybody's going to be buying fax machines. So I think that is how you should think about, whether it's this small organization. I know Microsoft, I've seen the most recent article with the Microsoft CEO driving an entire cultural shift. And if an organization like Microsoft with that scale, size, those capabilities can make that big change, it would be impossible to assume any other company cannot benefit from AI.
What really resonates with me is your comment on the press release agent.
Yeah.
What comes to mind is the old way of doing things, if I could say that.
Yeah.
Is you go online and you do a search.
Yeah.
And you get back a static result.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the search was to really look at static information and show you the best, most relevant static informational result back to you. And what you're doing with that press release agent is you're flipped the script a little bit, in that you're no longer providing the best static information to someone. You are providing them an interactive ability to do a deep dive and respond in a more personalized manner to people that are making inquiries at that moment on a set of information that is relevant at the moment, which is your press release. And you're gathering information at the moment, about the moment, and giving yourself more intelligence to then react to the market.
And that second part is so invaluable for any company, because we all start a journey based on where we are at. And as we encounter experiences, as we encounter different kinds of people, we adapt. You don't have that opportunity in a business where you can do that in real time. But the second part, where you actually literally see the press release information evolve hour by hour based on the questions that are coming in, because I did not even imagine somebody would ask this question. I'm curating that, and those questions themselves become part of the vector database. They themselves become part of the knowledge where you're starting to enhance and enrich the information being provided to the user. I mean, which company does not want to be able to have that raw feedback from people they care about and support them in near real time? Now, that is just an unbelievable power. And I can give you example after example. We'll be building a whole bunch of solutions around these things. They don't have to be big. They're not like life-changing. I need to do this 5-year deployment of this big project, AI project. They are literally, sometimes it takes 15 minutes to build one of these assistants. What do we call them? Assistants or knowledge agents.
And what's the difficult part about this is the mind shift.
Yeah, it is.
Is people have not thought about the possibility that they could do this in a reactive manner.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to get away from thinking this is how I did it always. And I want to optimize that. Optimize the old way of doing things.
Yeah.
When you can rethink it and do it in a manner that is more reactive and very, very different.
It is the hardest, James. Like I said, I read this article. I don't know how true it is. It's in the press, so press some sure some of the details are lost. But what I saw from Microsoft CEO was this, and by the way, this is happening in every large company, every small company. You almost need to adapt the how. The what remains the same. Yes, the objectives remains the same. And can you imagine, you are an expert in your craft for 30 years and I'm telling you, James, love the outcomes, man. But we all have to forget how we got here and start thinking about faster ways to do it. That's the hardest. But that's adaptability of using new tools. Uh, you have no choice.
Hmm.
You have no choice.
Yeah, it's a little bit like going to Europe today, and they've paved over the roads that they used. Well, and also the U.S., right? The roads have been there for 200 years,
Yeah.
and all they did was pave the road that was there. And now you're going faster, but you still have the same curves and the same hills.
That's true.
And the opportunity is you build new infrastructure.
Yeah.
You build a tunnel through the mountain, you build a bridge over the river,
Yeah.
rather than following the same path that you followed 200 years ago, but maybe a little bit faster.
Yeah. No, that is very, very true. I mean, look, in the enterprise, you do acknowledge that the speed of technology is dictated by the speed of adoption by people inside the organization, which is why doing small, meaningful projects is super important to show quick time to value, demonstrate the ability to make a difference for, oh, I see my neighbor doing this. Oh, this comms guy is doing this. Maybe I should be able to do it in my FP&A, my finance function. Let me see, can I do this in 15 minutes? If it requires 8 hours of work and some programming skills, that's too much of a bar. Make it easy. Give me something that ChatGPT was an incredible example of, did the models not exist before ChatGPT? Absolutely they existed. But they just made it so easy for people to come back and leverage what was hidden behind a very complex model, a transformer model. That's what we're trying to do. And you'll see more of that come out of Pinecone.
Excellent. And the press that I read, Ash, was that the chat interface. So to your point, the models have been there for a while.
Yeah.
And they built the chat interface on top of the models over a weekend.
Yeah.
And deployed it by accident, not realizing that was the secret sauce that would accelerate this whole movement.
And we are absolute believers in democratizing the use of AI. Presley's assistant, ironically, was built on a Saturday. I was being announced as a CEO of Pinecone on a Monday. On a Saturday, Mike Stefanow was our comms person. We were chatting. We said, hey, who are the two people who are going to read this press release? You and I. Nobody else cares. What do they care about? We don't know. Okay, we have this protocol assistant on a Saturday built by a marketing comms person, not a developer, not a data scientist, not even a programmer. He built what? Same thing with this product announcement. There's one for event management. There will be about 24 of these coming out built in 15 minutes by non-developers, no code people. I think that would be amazing if you can just embed this into your workflow, embed this into small chunks of things that you can actually get meaningful difference very quickly, while still being compliant with all the requirements of an enterprise, security, resilience, which is why the partnership with Azure makes a big difference. So I think, I'll just, from a big picture perspective, we think about this, right? The longer term picture is the AI race isn't about the biggest model, at least in the enterprise space, but it is by companies that can make the data accessible, convert that into a context that anybody can use. Anybody, interns, any function, and then partnership with organizations like Microsoft. where you bring in the platform that allows the enterprises to be comfortable, safe, de-risk. I think that's what we see the big picture.
Awesome. Ash, thank you so much for the conversation. Very much enjoyed it. The insights on the company, on the tech, but also the insights on how people should rethink
Yeah.
the opportunity to do amazing things in simple ways for their customers, for their clients, and for their companies. So
You said it very, very well. Do amazing things in very simple, small ways. That I think is the key. I think the key is not 5-year big enterprise project that hopefully the light will turn on at the end of the 5 years. Not anymore. So amazing stuff in a simple, small way by everyone. I think that compounding effect is a lot more effective. Yeah. Well,
excellent. Ash, thank you for your partnership. Very much appreciate it. And congratulations on the announcement with Commvault, and look forward to many more successes in the market between both companies. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the support, James.